Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Digital Grocer Season 4, Episode 9. I can't believe we've made it this far to date. I'm your host, Sylvain Perrier, President and CEO of Mercatus Technologies. And joining me, as always, is co-host, sidekick, Mark Fairhurst, VP of Marketing. Mark.
Hello, hello. It's been a while.
It's been a while, Mark. It's been
no beard. I had no beard.
You had hair and no beard, and it migrated.
It's just shifted south.
And you replaced your fireplace in the back to a beautiful aquarium.
Yeah, I'm anticipating the summer months. Hopefully soon.
It's weather here in Canada can be strange. Especially if you're in Toronto or in the surrounding suburbs, right? Who knew, right? It's snowing one day, the next day you're water skiing. I have no clue anymore.
Tell that to our friends in Texas.
Yes, that was just so terrible what they went through, and I mean, what we learned from that is their own power grid is actually not connected to the national system. It's been deregulated, and just reality is they're not equipped to handle the weather, right?
Yeah.
Now, my understanding is this is the second time they've had such an event occur. The first time would have been in 2003, I believe, that it happened.
I didn't know they had a disconnected grid. Really, really tragic what happened, and I think it just, not to get political, it just speaks to the unpredictability in terms of weather patterns going forward.
Yeah, and we were experiencing it here. I mean, we're starting to experience 2 seasons in a week, in some cases, and even in the middle of winter, which is and talks about global warming and so on, right? So there's a lot of things that are happening in grocery retail, specifically this coming week, or this past week, I should say. So first and foremost, when we all got the news, Mark was slacking me at like 5 o'clock in the morning to let me know that Longo,
because I got nothing better to do.
Because I got nothing better to do, and that's what we do all day. It's just we're slacking.
Yeah.
That Longo's was acquired by Sobeys.
Yeah, that was big news, at least in the Canadian grocery retail market.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm curious to see how Sobeys is going to manage having a Farm Boy and a Longo's, two retailers that have traditionally, I would say traditionally competed, but we're starting to compete in the greater Toronto area. And how Michael, the CEO of Sobeys, is going to manage that, because they're similar in the sense, but private label, I find private label much stronger over at Farm Boy. The experience is different. I look at Longo's all about entertaining. I'm a loyal Sobeys shopper, so when I go to Sobeys, it's they get my complete share of wallet. So I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to balance this out, specifically on real estate and growth of the Longo's brand. I was also, sorry, Mark, but I was astonished. Only 70,000 users for Grocery Gateway.
Yeah, I thought it would be a lot more. Yeah, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought it was.
For those who don't, so Sobeys is in the Canadian market, dare I say, is very oligopolistic. So we have maybe 5 large grocery chains, and it's very hard to be an independent and continue to invest and compete. Sobeys has partnered with Ocado to bring to market their robotics CFC, and they've been doing really well. And I guess Longo's just figured, it would be a long, hard road ahead to compete against that kind of momentum. And you got to think, did Sobeys have this in the back of their mind 3-4 years ago when they had started to contemplate what the next iteration of grocery e-commerce would be? And even where they had situated the robotics center, and it's close to where Longo's office is. If that was the case, it was a brilliant long game play for Sobeys.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of developments are going to occur. But we wish the the Longo's team and their associates and the family, best of luck. I think it's, it's great. It's great to see a Canadian success continue in the hands of another Canadian organization. I think I was talking to some independents the day of the announcement and the day after, and they were shocked, but somewhat not surprised. It's kind of challenging right now. I mean, if you look at, I don't know if Mark, if you saw the news that was put out there by NGA a few days ago, but you have, small retailers, asking the U.S. government to investigate large retailers. So that fight between, big retailers and smaller retailers, as much as we like to say there's been this period of détente, that's certainly not the case.
I think coming out of the pandemic, hopefully, knock on wood soon, the fact that the big fish have gotten bigger and are using their supply chain dominance to get preferential pricing from suppliers is hurting independents. At least that's the contention of the NGA.
Yeah. Well, there's also the fact that they can use their capital to do so much more. I mean, not just on pushing the CPGs around, but what innovation is another one. But also turning the ship at a Walmart on innovation is not easy. For it to have a major impact, it's got to be fairly large. I mean, the advantage a smaller retailer has, if they can get past the fear of innovation and the desire to innovate. But the challenge becomes to move the needle, it's got to be so big. So like I was saying, for the smaller retailers, if you can get past that fear of innovation and think iteratively and try, and you somewhat have a bit of an advantage, because any little thing can have such a major impact on business. We recently published some important numbers. So this is in partnership with Brick Meets Click, David Bishop, who we love working with. We published our February numbers from our national survey. Mark, top of your head, can you share some of those numbers?
The February numbers came in at about $8 billion, down from the 9.3 in January. So in some respects, a significant drop, but not unexpected. And I think David's projecting a little more settling coming into March. Mm-hmm. What's clear though is that curbside is continuing to be the dominant fulfillment method for the vast majority of grocery shoppers. The downside though is that the customer experience still lags what respondents are saying that the experience is like with delivery. So when you think, one of the questions that we asked David was, why is it that a shopper goes to a local regional grocer as opposed to a large mass merchant chain? And he says it's two things. It's their product assortment and their customer experience. If you can't deliver on your product promise, you're going to have a challenge. And it's just, your shoppers are going to bleed to those chains that can deliver.
Yeah, it's interesting. What came out also of that report that we just started to circulate is that for the month of February, 95 million American households bought groceries online.
Yeah, astounding number.
It's amazing, and that's still, I believe, higher than January. And you said something really interesting around customer satisfaction. I mean, we are seeing, and I shared a report out on the internet from the American Customer Satisfaction Index. It's a report that's done annually, and it goes through multiple verticals in retail, specifically in grocery. I think in this instance, satisfaction, depending on the type of retailer, dropped close to 30%.
Yeah.
It's very significant.
Yeah. And it's definitely something that a lot of the traditional brick and mortar chains really have to take a look at, and because it is a leading indicator for a customer lifetime value.
Yeah, it is, and it's interesting you say that, and everything you're going to say is going to be interesting. So,
not everything.
Not everything. But what I have found more often than not, that a lot of retailers are just doing these mini pulse surveys throughout the year, and what they're not, and so they're using satisfaction I don't want to call it a lagging indicator, but it's too late when you've measured it throughout the year. What they're not doing is making sure that when the digital receipt is sent out post submission of the order, they're not including a link to capture a quick survey. When the order is delivered or when the order is picked up, they're not including a follow-up survey. And I know we can get survey fatigue, but we're not talking about 50 questions here. We're talking about 3 questions: a loyalty question, a satisfaction question, and would you return, right? So those are the 3 main drivers of true loyalty in specifically in retail or in research. You can ask those questions repeatedly, and I think the beauty is you can develop this customer rescue program where you can deal, and as Mark was just saying, it being a leading indicator. If you're starting to see a dip, you have an operational issue that you need to deal with. Don't wait when it's too late to find out, because retailers don't yet know, like in the SaaS industry, you need to take customer churn extremely seriously, and that's not necessarily happening in the grocery e-commerce space. Other news: Kroger is temporarily closing stores in California. I don't know if you saw that, Mark.
I saw the headline. I didn't dig into the story.
Yeah,
so,
is
it temporary?
I don't know. It seems to be in response to the minimum wage increase, and I think it's to force the hand of the government. But the reality, certain depends where in California, but in certain locations, other retailers are going to reap the rewards. I don't know if Kroger is doing this just to put pressure, but at the same time, customers will go to the next available.
Yep.
An Albertsons, a Safeway, a Walmart, a Smart and Final, a grocery outlet. I mean, they have choice in a lot of those markets. So stay tuned on that. The other thing that we're seeing that's quite interesting out there in the press, we're seeing Instacart really bolster their executive ranks as well as their board of directors. I mean, the big addition to their board is the CEO of Snowflake. Snowflake is a large virtual database provider online. I believe they are a vendor to Instacart in any case, from my understanding from reading some of the press that's out there. I'm often perplexed and I wonder, and I know our phone has been ringing off the hook with regional retailers that are kind of at a point saying, I need to own my own curbside experience. I'm locked into an exclusive agreement. It's coming to term. I want to get out of this. I need to do something different. And the question I'm asked a lot from these retailers is, has Instacart become too big for a Walmart and an Amazon to catch up to? And where does that leave me as a tier 1, tier 2, and even tier 3 retailer caught up in this brouhaha? And it's an interesting subject. And so Mark and I kind of figured the best way to kind of tackle this is we bring back an old guest and a good friend, Tim Mercatus.
He doesn't look old.
He doesn't look old. He looks like a rock star.
He does.
He does look like a rock star. And that's Rick Watson, the CEO and founder of RMW Commerce Consulting. Rick, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, guys. Great to be back. We do look like an old rock band now. I think the 3 of us together.
Well, 2 of us look like we're from the Grateful Dead, and you look like you're from maybe Motley Crue.
We'll make you the lead.
I had a customer. I'll be honest with you. A CEO of a major retailer about a month ago said I looked like it was in a boy band.
What?
It wasn't. It wasn't confidence inspiring in a sales pitch.
No. No. Oh my God, that's amazing. Wow. So, Rick, want to get your thoughts. When you much like the rest of us, you're reading the headlines of what's happening with Instacart, right? So market growth during the pandemic, the bench strength that they're creating internally at the executive level, at the board level, capital that they're raising. I mean, are they too big to catch up even for a Walmart or an Amazon?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Walmart, no. I'm starting to wonder about Amazon, to be honest, just because of their density and the number of stores. Walmart they're such a monster. They're so good at logistics. If they just focus, I think they have a shot. I think Amazon, I'm a little worried about them. Whole Foods isn't enough by itself. Let's start. To me, that's where you start the conversation. 500 stores in the U.S. is not enough. Not enough availability. Not enough selection. Even within a single Whole Foods store, the selection isn't that great. And so that means they either need to acquire someone else, which I don't think they'll do, or they'll continue with their fresh strategy. And so I think online, I'm not seeing someone who's catching them at the moment, because Walmart is still experimenting with, micro fulfillment or hyper local, whatever you want to call it now. And they have a little bit different approach than Kroger to that, who's partnered with Ocado. And so I think it's a legitimate topic to understand. If you really unpack what Instacart is, particularly online, I think that they definitely may be too big to catch.
And so what does that leave? So the small regional chain that has literally put all their eggs in the same basket, where does that leave them? Are they beholden so much to Instacart? If Instacart switches strategy and does something, where does that put that retailer?
Well, it doesn't put them in a great place, but I think the alternatives are worse, almost. If you are a retailer, it's almost like, let's look at the US e-commerce market. What percentage of retailers can shut off Amazon? Like 3.
Right.
Nike, and you can't name like 4 others. You can't. It's not possible. And so Walmart, maybe Kroger can shut off Instacart. Everyone else, I'm not sure you want to shut off Instacart. I mean, I think for the optimized retailer that really understands their customer, that has great product, if you can long-term get Instacart to 30% of your online volume, that's to me, that's your target. Any more than that, you're too beholden. Any less than that, I think you're missing opportunity.
Right.
So
go ahead, Mark.
So you're suggesting is, have a best of both worlds type strategy when it comes to the Instacart marketplace.
I think so, because I think most other online digital marketing channels have played out that way. And you can have your own website and be on a marketplace and have different approaches. One of them by themselves, I think, is insufficient. You're not going to reach the whole market. You're not going to be introduced. I mean, most people were like, oh, I shouldn't be on Amazon. It's going to cannibalize me. Like, well, the reality is there are a lot of people that aren't shopping on your website. And there are a lot of people that haven't walked into your store. And you can expand your reach and attract a lot of new shoppers. And you're going to pick up some of those. But if you don't have your own strategy, then these are Instacart customers. Let's be honest. These aren't your customers if you don't have a second prong to your strategy.
Right.
Put it that way.
Yeah, and it's kind of like one of our retailers does this quite well, Smart and Final out in Commerce, California, where what they've done is they've created their own ecosystem. So their own website, B2C, B2B, and then they've gone further out and leveraged the marketplaces. So Shipt and Instacart. And both, I wouldn't say they cater to the same customer, but the reality is what they're also doing, and I find this really smart, is the product that they're seeding on those marketplaces is also a little bit different than what they're selling online in their own website. So they're getting people hooked. There's the convenience, and they're using it to drive more traffic to their own .com as well.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think, I think the analogy actually plays out pretty well with the rest of online retailer. And if you look at Wayfair, how does Wayfair compete with Amazon when they have all the same suppliers? Well, one of the big ways is that it's become like the mattress industry. You can't price compare anything. All the brands are different. If you search and hunt any savvy consumer can figure out like this product on overstock.com is the same as Amazon, is the same as Wayfair, but they also have quite a number of their own unique brands, that they buy or drop ship. So I think the notion of unique differentiated selection it's a must.
Right.
Your own private label. You don't, to give up, for instance, all your private label to Instacart is
That's not good.
probably not the best move.
No, it's not. No, it's absolutely not. So, and the business model, is counterintuitive, because if there's a markup on the private label of 10, 12, 15%, I mean, it defeats the purpose of private label, quite frankly. Right.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting.
I mean, you're reading the trades like the rest of us, and you're working with a lot of executive, in the retail space. And what's your crystal ball telling you what's going to happen, around innovation and technology?
Look, I think Instacart is on the path to becoming the fourth largest ad network, at least in North America.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty massive business. Amazon, obviously, it's going to be hard for them to beat Amazon and Facebook and Google. So I think number 4 is a reasonable target. And I think because it's a little bit more niche, I think it's a realistic target for them. I think their ad network innovation will be pretty tremendous. I think Instacart's innovation around their machine learning models, what things are in stock versus out of stock, how things are replacement. I mean, the two biggest complaints I hear from, I would say, the Instacart naysayers are like, oh, this is a flash in the pan. It's going to go back to normal. No one's going to want to do it. It's number one is the price is too high, and second is the replacement situation. So like, I can't get what I ordered, and I think the ad dollars are going to solve problem number 1, and I think machine learning is going to solve problem number 2. So right. I think those people, if you wait 3 years, they're dead, because they're not investing enough. They're not investing enough and faster than Instacart.
Well, they're not raising capital to do it.
Yeah,
quite frankly,
you raise an interesting notion, and it's Instacart has said we're not a grocery retailer. We've always said, well, not yet, but now they're branching into other verticals. And the way I've described it is, they're more a media company than a retailer, and that's where I think their focus is. It's the eyeballs, the consumer eyeballs that they need, and that's how they monetize their growth going forward.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, any internet scale industry that becomes kind of a verb, let's say, almost it's all the internet markets are almost all winner takes most. And usually there's a number one that has figured out what the number one thing consumers want, and they've optimized for that. For Amazon, it's been convenience. Instacart is actually making the same bet that consumers are going to care number one about convenience, not about price or anything else, or loyalty to a brand or anything. And I think it's so hard for people to switch apps. Just the cognitive load of having 5 grocery apps on your phone. Yes, there are people that do that, but it's extremely rare. I know there have been studies all over that support that. And I agree. I 100% agree with you that they're a media company. If you look at their executive team, 100% of their executives are almost ad network executives. And I think that's how they solve the price problem. And I think retailers ignore Instacart, frankly, at their own peril, because the brands want to pour, like, where is the brand going to spend their money? Are they going to spend money on the end cap at a supermarket no one's walking into anymore?
No.
Or are they going to spend it online? And where can you concentrate most of your dollars? If Instacart is winning, I don't know, I haven't seen a number since last June, which is a little bit dangerous, obviously, for obvious reasons. But that number showed online grocery, Instacart had already crossed 50%. Even if they come down to 30%, that's a massive business, particularly if 10 years from now, online grocery is half the market.
Right.
Let's say.
Right. Well, and that's the challenge at the end of the day. If you're a CPG, you can get distribution quite quickly with your ad dollars. Problem is, where do you go and get a vehicle that creates conversion for you? And end caps are never a guarantee, because I think we all know the challenge. Now, I've talked to a lot of CPGs. They spend so much money just making sure that their end caps get installed and the product actually makes it to the end cap. And at the end of the day, it's so frictionless to go with an ad network that guarantees you conversion. It just makes good sense.
Right.
You know, and then suddenly that's a challenge for a retailer that survives on trade dollars. And there's tons of retailers today, if you were to take away the trade dollars, they wouldn't be in business.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And it's an interesting point you raised. And so the question is, like, in the US, even before the pandemic, many years before the pandemic, it's been known to have been overstored. In the department store space, the middle is being squeezed out. Will that happen in grocery as digital keeps eating share? Will it be a few big guys, maybe a couple of regional players in each space, like an HEB in Texas or something like that, and then Instacart?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. And here's why I'm going to say yes. I think there are still retailers reeling from the '08 decline in the economy. It's 12 years ago, that are hanging by a thread. And so you take this, I don't want to call it an artificial moment in time, but this moment in time where your sales are through the roof, but your expenditures are the same. So, investments in PPE, investments in cleaning, stocking the shelf. And then you have this moment where dollars, CPG side, are going to the digital side, and the growth of, grocery e-commerce. If we hit a recession in the next, no, mind you, we haven't had a recession since '08. If we hit a decline in the economy that lasts for more than 6 months in the coming future, you will see some regional retailers disappear or have to be acquired.
Yeah.
Because, if the dollars are leaving and you can't fall back on your trade and co-op, or you can't fall back on something, and you don't have a strong private label brand, because people trade down in the brands they buy, or they trade out. They go to a discount retailer. If they don't go to a discount retailer, they have to go to a food bank. And so if we have another event like this, and on tail end of this situation, I don't think you'll see the same number of retailers out there in the market. I just don't. So I would agree. Man, this conversation got somber really, really quick.
What happened?
I don't know. Sorry.
We just dealt with one economic downturn. Now he's anticipating the next.
We just destroyed half the industry in a few minutes.
Wow, it's like a really bad game of Risk.
So on that, is there something uplifting we can talk about as far as e-commerce in general and grocery e-commerce in particular? Long pause.
Yeah, no, I mean, so listen,
I see.
Yeah, here's the beauty about this. I think, notwithstanding Instacart's success, I think you have a lot of retailers that are realizing that this is the real deal. That on their doorsteps is the opportunity to do something. What that is, I think they're starting to figure this out, and that's why they should call Rick, because Rick can help them understand the strategy behind how you leverage these marketplaces to your benefit, and create your own ecosystem. That's great. Also, we're seeing retailers starting to invest in proper operational procedures and processes and technology just to push out costs.
Yeah, I would agree. Not to steal any thunder from Rick, but I see this as a wake up call to a lot of retailers who, for the longest time, had their head in the sand, or didn't see the significance of the shift to online.
Yeah,
particularly in grocery, because it's the laggard vertical. And I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that they're going to reclaim the strategy from some of the larger players in the market. And by the way, contact Rick.
Yeah. So thank you, first of all. And I think the one of the most interesting trends to watch, I think, we're spending a lot of time talking about the retailers. What we're not doing is spending a lot of time talking about the brands. And so I think it's such an interesting scenario to play out. Like and look, grocery is already like a super innovative category. It has been an explosion of brands, not only in grocery, but in pharmacy, in CPG. And I think the biggest threat to these regional grocers may not come from Instacart directly. It may come from the brands who are like, why do I want to go sell wholesales to these dying supermarkets? Like, Instacart, please house my inventory. And I just want to be in all your major markets. Like, people will be, if we get a direct-to-consumer revolution in grocery, like similar to what we saw in like apparel and clothing and all these DTC online categories, which I think very well you could, especially if you make these easy. Like, just look at it. There's like 3 million Amazon sellers. What percentage of them are only on Amazon? Like a decent percentage are not multi-channel. So I think Instacart could fuel a wave of online only brands that you can't find in a store. And I think that means Instacart would have to solve a lot of logistics challenges, but it wouldn't be because Instacart is like trying to destroy the grocery market. It'd be because the brands see it as like this boon for them.
Yeah.
That's and I think if you marry what you just said there with what the Financial Times has reported, Instacart's investment in robotic distribution centers, you paint a very interesting picture.
Well, this also goes back to, we just attended this spring meetup of Grocery Shop, which was all virtual, which is kind of interesting. And out of all the CPGs that were attending, all of them were looking for commerce platforms, all of them. And we're also seeing a big surge in B2B commerce coming from the retail side, right? So retailers trying to position themselves to go after the B2B side of the house. I think you're right, Rick. Parting comments for our audience. Any key words of wisdom and advice?
I think your notion of wake up call is a good one, because I think we're at an inflection point in the market where we've just made a huge jump from, let's say, 2% online penetration of grocery to 10, 8 to 10, something like that in the US, North America. So the question is, what are you going to do about that? Really, it is kind of the question I would leave most readers with, or most watchers with. And if you keep things on autopilot, you have to invest ahead of the market if you're going to get outsized returns from the growth that's ahead of you, because the big players are investing tens of billions of dollars. And so if you think you can invest another 2% in CapEx next year and capture the opportunity, I think you're wrong. And so I think quite a number of these, I think the investment levels need to go up. The pace of innovation needs to go up. It's not going to be about just the platform. It's going to be about culture. It's going to be about how you innovate faster as an organization.
Absolutely. And listen, great to have you on the show as always. So how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the easiest way to get a hold of me is check out my website, rmwcommerce.com, or look for me on LinkedIn. Just type in Rick Watson and e-commerce, and you'll find me there.
Awesome. It's been great having you on the show, and thank you. Mark, another show in the can.
Yeah, it was a great one. Great guests, great topics. We've got some other shows coming up that I think people are going to be really interested in.
I know they're going to be interested. Absolutely. Folks, thank you so much. And don't forget to keep your ear to the ground when you hear our next episode of Digital Grocer drop. And peace out.